Alright, as promised, here's going to be my next review on my custom Farid Mehr K2, or Mini K2. It's really not mini at all, and I'll kind of show you that. Not many of these things are around. As you will see, I tend to go after things that are unique, that you're really not going to find anywhere. So I'm going to kind of talk about it and why I love it, and some different features that are on this thing that no other knife offers that I've handled yet. So what makes this any different than any normal titanium frame lock that's out there right now? Quite a bit, actually. So all the hardware is done by Farid himself. So you've got this really unique kind of fat barrel backspacer piece going on here. It's really cool. Also, the screws, this over travel, it's all done by Farid. So it's completely different than anything else you're going to see out there. You've also got, it may look like a Spyderco hole at first, but it's completely different. It's pretty radical as far as you see, like that knurling right in here, right? That actually is like so much more effective than the Spyderco round hole, which I'm actually a pretty big fan of, but that knurling really catches your thumb every time you go to open the knife. It's a very distinguished feature on this thing. At first I didn't think it was going to really matter all that much, but it really does. It catches every time. Another cool thing about it, the scales are all contoured, so they're all rolled. So no like rough handling at all. It's not squared off, which a lot of titanium frame locks are actually kind of squared. So when you're holding them and you're really using, it kind of digs into your hand. Or you'll hear guys talk about hot spots, create wear on your hand. And this knife has nothing like that. It is designed completely for ease of use and practicality. So the other feature that I'm blown away by, and I've got to say it's pretty cool, this kind of reminds me of my Red Horse Hellraiser here as far as this scalloped section on where the lock bar is at for your finger to go into. It is so well done. And I'll go ahead and say this, the lock bar itself is the best lock bar design that I've handled, bottom line. The reason is, if you can see, it's very scalloped here. It's like, oh man, it's so smooth. So every time you go to close this knife, oh man, nothing feels like it. It's awesome. And you see here, this really catches perfect every time. Again, just boom, every time. So cool. I love that feature. Very well thought out. You've got Farid's signature lock bar cutout, serpentine thing going on. I don't know, it probably doesn't add any function to it at all. It's probably more of a cosmetic thing. You see the patent pending for that scalloped out opening hole. The clip, I'm never sure how I'm going to like clips, especially when they're very simplistic looking like this one. I'm always worried that it's just some kind of basic thing that's not going to function very well, but this thing is great. I love it. The angle it sits at is perfect. Nothing to complain about at all. Some other things that really make this knife stand out. It's actually pretty deceiving. I mean, I'll compare it to the Spyderco K2 here in a second. And size-wise, I mean, you would think this so-called mini K2 won't stack up to the full size, but it's a monster. It's got a really thick spine. I really love this smoothed out. It's so smooth up here. So when you're cutting, I mean, this just feels awesome. So cool. The other thing that makes this knife really stand out is the D3 steel that it uses. Check that edge out there. If you guys need any edge work done, send your knife off to Spade Knife Works. He has done several of my knives. He actually repaired this. I dropped this knife on concrete, the tip on concrete when I was using it, and I damaged the tip. I mean, we're talking like a 6-foot drop straight onto concrete in my garage while I was working, and he restored it. It's perfect. It's actually, I don't know, the edge is beautiful. Looks fantastic. Such a mean and nasty looking blade. Scalpel looking sharp. Really love it. So in comparison, we'll compare it to the Spyderco K2. Spyderco K2 is more along the lines of the regular full-size Farid Mehr K2, and you can see there's a length difference there. I'm not going to get too much into that. You can actually see that the tie scales on the Mini K2 are thicker than the one on the Spyderco K2. Probably some of the biggest differences, and I hope I can catch this, you can really see that lock bar on the actual custom, how far it goes over into that hole, the opening hole. You can see that it doesn't really do it much here. That is part of my problem with the Spyderco K2. They really knocked it out of the park on some of the features, as far as it's pretty close. On some of the things, they knocked out the serpentine lock bar. Clip I'm not a big fan of, but it does its job. They did put like a little barreled fat round backspacer in there, a little hardware. But the biggest difference is, I mean, they tried to mimic that lock relief here, this like scallop section, and it's not, like, it's not close. I mean, I can catch it a little bit, but I don't get that just easy slide off locking. I have to really grab this and push down to close it. Not enough for me to hate the knife, but because I have handled this, and like I said, look at that difference, just easy every time. Big difference. The other difference you'll see, obviously, look at the blade thickness. Very different. So as far as like a knife I would say that's close in size to it, I would say the Three Sisters Forge Gorgon. I think I mean, the blade is slightly longer on the Gorgon. I mean, by a hair, not much. But frame-wise, I would say they're pretty close. They've got the same thickness, built for use. I mean, both very cool. Size-wise, right on key. Compared to the Untitled, just for another look. And it's actually bigger and heavier than the Untitled for being a mini K2. Go ahead and look at the blades. About the same blade length, really. About the same length on the scales as well. But I don't know. Both are awesome. And to really kind of put into perspective the size difference compared to the Spyderco K2 and then the so-called Mini, I mean, yeah, you get a lot more blade. I'm not going to lie. I would love to get a regular sized custom by Farid Mehr. I plan on doing it just because I love that extra blade that I can work with. Really cool. This, like, the handle and everything is perfect for me with my hand size. It's just, there are some differences as far as the handle. This is not squared. This is all squared off, actually. And, you know, if you're wearing gloves and you're doing serious cutting, you're not even going to tell. But just from my experience, I can tell you that to have rounded corners on a knife versus squared off is pretty significant once you really start going to town with it. I can see with the Spyderco version, if you have gloves on, this might cause a real problem. Because, I mean, you don't get much. Like I said, you really have to dig into the lock bar on this to get it to close. And then we'll just compare for fun. We'll compare it to the Thresher, which is huge. Let's compare that. Yeah, big differences. Look forward to reviewing this knife soon. No, I just posted a video on my Instagram today of it, so it's a monster. So, I don't know, it's hard to beat this thing. The one thing I'll say is that the hardware is really unique. You got to know what you're doing playing around with it. I may even do a video where I show how to disassemble it just because it's such a different system than anything else I've seen. The other thing that's kind of different on the actual, can kind of see, here we go. So there, instead of like on the lock bar relief, instead of it being just squared out like most, there's actually a circle cut out. Just a plain circle. Don't know if that adds any function or not. I don't know if that's just something that Farid does himself. I don't know, but that's another thing that's different that I haven't seen on any knives. I don't know. Not much to complain about on it at all. So much thought, I feel like, is put into his knives. I know that he actually does everything handmade. You can email him and talk to him about it. He's actually a great dude to email. He recommended that I try out the full-size Spyderco K2 because he recommended I try that out before I buy one of his regular size, which I mean, I've wanted one forever, and I definitely am going to get one, so going to try and get on, maybe see if I can land one by the end of the year. We'll see. But it's hard to beat this thing. It is as beastly and cool as it looks. And it's got some features on it that no other tie frame lock does. So if you find one, I would say try and go for it. You know, I know the big push right now are the, you know, Chavez and, you know, some of these other tie frame locks that I see all over the place. And I really love this thing. It's so different. So it's not what everybody else has got in their pocket, and it's got some features you're really gonna love. You know, some things that really make sense, just practical and thought out. So I don't know, you don't see them often. I've only seen like 2 other people that I know on Instagram that have this thing. Farid doesn't put out many of these, so if you can, try and grab it. Alright, well that's all I have today on that knife. If there's any questions you have about it, you can email me on Instagram, Knife Knowing Ya, and just ask me any questions or anything about the knife. It's pretty wild. Like I said, there's not anything like it out there. So as far as what I'll review next, I don't know. As usual, I can't make up my mind, so I'll probably just feel it out, see what you guys want to see, and go from there. Until that time, take care.